Today I'm going to be reviewing the most exciting product I think I've ever gotten, and it was only $50. If you're interested in motion picture film or film photography, stay tuned. So I saw some of film photography projects videos using the Lomokino, and I just hadn't had a reason to buy one yet. I've been trying to limit the amount of film cameras I buy because I've been getting too many of them. Well, with my film getting greenlit, I now have a reason. So we are basically going to use it as a backup for B-roll if we run out of Super 8 film, because we're shooting part of it on film. I was able to buy it, and I ended up running some camera tests on it. And I have to say, in certain aspects, I love this product even more. And in certain aspects, it was a little bit of a letdown. But you kind of have to have the understanding that it's only $50. It's a great tool to get into motion picture film. I think it's kind of the perfect tool to get into motion picture film. I'm going to go over just a few things that I think are important. The whole thing feels kind of flimsy when you open up the case to load the film. And so you do kind of need to be gentle with it, which is not something I'm typically used to doing with my cameras. And so when you open it, the click feels kind of hard, but it's supposed to, I guess. And then another thing I noticed, that like every motion picture film camera, the gate seems to attract dust. So make sure that you have an air blower and you blow out the gate either before or after every shoot. When you finish using the roll, it rips the sprocket holes to kind of let you know you're done. And those little leftover sprockets get stuck in the gate. So I would just advise, like, bring a little air blower whenever you change things out. We took it with us when we went on a recent mineral hunt. My phone ended up dying, so the only B-roll I have from this trip was through the Lomokino. I also misexposed it. I misread the user manual, and I think I read that the shutter speed was 1/100th. when it's actually 1/10. Only a few of these stocks came out. Luckily, the film from this trip did come out. And I have to say, I actually really enjoy this footage. I think this shows kind of the benefits of film, where you have a cheap camera with a cheap lens, but the amount of information you can get from it if you have a quality film stock is actually pretty great. I really liked how this footage came out. This does lead to kind of my first bit of advice though. One roll really should just be one shot. I thought maybe I could get this whole part of the adventure on one roll, and it just moves so quick. I mean, you do capture, and it does kind of have that vintage film feel, like back in like the 1900s. It is really quick. If you are going to use this for like any kind of storytelling capacity, you're gonna use up a lot more film, and I would say one roll of film for one shot. I took it out and I just kind of tested it in my backyard the next day, and this was with an ASA 400. It's gonna be it's not gonna be way overexposed, but it was a little overexposed. I like the way this stuff looks too. Again, you can kind of see the jittery. I would take all your usual panning speed that everybody kind of develops as you become a filmmaker and slow it down to about 10% of that. Would be another bit of advice I'd have, because like, yeah, as you can see, the panning is very quick. I took it to the park as well, put some more Ektachrome 100 in it, and again, I kind of misexposed it, so there was a few parts of it that were underexposed, but through scanning I was able to pull out a little bit more information than was originally there. Again, this is kind of the advantage of shooting with something like this. You can scan it yourself, and yes, it is slide film, so you're gonna have to eat a lot of misinformation being gone. But I was actually able to pull out more than I originally thought I could. On the last two tests I did was at a different park, because we were testing some other camera stuff for the film that day. And I put in some Cinestill 50D, which I think this is the perfect film for it. I think between this and Ektachrome 100, those are the two perfect film stocks for it. Of course, they're both kind of expensive films, which is a bit of a bummer. I really love the way this 50D stuff came out. I happened to just be filming just a family a little ways away. There wasn't a ton of movement. I think there's like one or two pans, but I think this is where this film really shined. Of course, it's Cinestill, which means it's motion picture film that they took the remjet layer off. So this should be a good ideal film for this product, and it showed. I really like the way this looked. I'm gonna bring a roll of this as well as a few rolls of Ektachrome with me on the shoot, because I like the way this looks. So this last shot I tried to use an ND again, because I was exposing it. I thought I was way overexposed on all my shots, so I tried putting an ND on it, which ended up way underexposing it. And also, this kind of leads to the next bit of advice. Really make sure when you load the film that you have it loaded, because this didn't capture nearly as many frames on this shoot, and obviously it's way underexposed, so it's fine. I would make sure, maybe give it an extra tug when you're loading it and make sure that all the prongs are being caught by the claws and stuff like that. The last bit of advice I would give, and it's kind of apparent on this example, is there's kind of like a sweet spot if you're shooting people where they need to be. I would say anywhere from like 10 to 20 feet away from the camera is going to be a sweet spot. And then if they're too close, there is a close-up lens that you can get closer up. I didn't experiment with that too much on this one, but if you're going to get like extreme wide shots, the information is going to be pretty limited with this lens, which is kind of understandable, but just something to look out for. I do have to say this, if you're going to use this, it's mainly going to be for just to have some fun. I might use it as a fill-in or a last option to replace some Super 8 footage in a film, but that really wouldn't be ideal. I would much rather just stick with the Super 8 just because the frame rate's a little bit more consistent than a hand crank. But that isn't to say that there isn't a use for this. I have been kind of scheming up different ways I can use it in different scenes in different movies. I'm not saying I'll never use it in a film because I absolutely will. It's just going to need to be for a purpose or for a reason. In saying that, if you wanted to get a better version of this with about the same frame rate, the Nikon F5, I believe one of Nikon's last film cameras they released, can shoot at a maximum of 5 frames a second and will give you kind of a more polished look of this. Granted, it ends up using the entire frame, whereas the Lomokino uses half a frame. So you're going to run out of film quicker, but I mean, you're going to have interchangeable lenses. You're going to have a much better image. So if you wanted to do something that fits this on a little bit of a nicer scale, I would say go with Nikon F5. But yeah, the Lomokino definitely has an old vintage film look, because this is how old cameras really were made back in the day. And it definitely can be a tool used in storytelling. You're just gonna have to get creative with how you do it. Also, there's a gentleman on YouTube who found a way to rig his Lomokino to shoot either at 24 or 18 frames a second using a drill. I'll leave a link to that below. I think that's a great idea. I might end up buying another one of these just so I could do this rig for it. That brings in a whole another interesting dynamic to this as well. But you are gonna run through film this way, so there's a time and a place for both, I guess. The last bit of advice is if you do use this for a storytelling purpose, you want to incorporate some of this footage in a film or a commercial or whatever, I would definitely say it's worth spending the $30-40 and sending it to Film Photography Project to have it properly telesyn. I don't know if you noticed, but in all my scans, there was at least 1 or 2 frames where I misjudged where the frame ends and I cut the frame at the wrong area and ended up losing part of the shot. This wouldn't happen if I sent it to Film Photography Project, but I wanted to give it a test. It would be worth it on that end. To close this up, I'm so excited about this product. I really want to keep experimenting with it. I haven't seen a ton of like really great examples of people using this camera to tell a story. The best one I could find was the Lomography store in Japan created something called Tokyo Lights, which was kind of like a commercial for the Lomokino, and I think they really showed the max capability of it. Kind of want to get to that point. I guarantee you it took them a long time of practicing with this camera to get it to that point. I'm really intrigued. They have a lot of shots of like girls walking down the street and stuff, and I want to know how they did that with the hand cranked and had it at least be somewhat steady. I would be intrigued to see like a behind the scenes video on that. There is a lot of potential for this. If you do stop motion animation, this would be a great camera to use to get started in that, just because you have the half frames. You're not going to use as much film, and it's fun. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The whole reason we make our lives more difficult as film photographers and motion picture filmmakers is it's fun. It does take a little bit to make a video. It took me about, I would say, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to properly cut the video together. But again, it's just something fun. I enjoy doing it, and this is going to be a pretty good backup in case we run out of Super 8 film on the film set. If you've tried the Lomokino, please leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think of it. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to use it again. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, thanks. Bye.